Fallout New Vegas was released on the 19th of October 2010. It was a spin-off to the main Fallout franchise, spearheaded by Obsidian Entertainment and set in the state of Nevada, around the real-life city of Las Vegas. The game itself was instantly adored by fans and became a cult classic amongst the gaming community. The overall tone of New Vegas is much different to the Bethesda counterparts, and to some Fallout fans, it's the true 3D Fallout that was promised. Obsidian Entertainment weren't done here. They had 4 more major expansions planned for New Vegas, subsequently releasing Dead Money, Honest Hearts, Old World Blues, and Lonesome Road. Today, we're going to be focusing on the first of these DLCs, and arguably the most infamous, and its position within the Fallout speedrunning community. Today, we're looking at the world record history of Dead Money, the most polarizing New Vegas DLC. Dead Money launched to the Xbox 360 on the 21st of December 2010 and came to PC and PlayStation 3 next year on the 22nd of February 2011. The DLC itself had some very severe gameplay changes to the standard Fallout formula, focusing more on a slow and methodical gameplay over a carefree exploration RPG that was the base game of New Vegas. Instead, Dead Money restricted the player at every turn with toxic clouds and explosive radios, which threatened to detonate the collar around your neck. Slowly after the release of Dead Money, the speedrun scene for New Vegas would begin to develop. The first ever recorded New Vegas speedrun was on the 26th of July 2012, where Rebcart achieved the first credited speedrun of New Vegas any percent, with a 37-minute and 52-second world record. This would be the start of the New Vegas speedrun scene, but it wouldn't be until 4 years later that the DLCs would be touched by some speedrun magic. It's early 2016, roughly 5 years after the release of Dead Money, and the New Vegas speedrunning scene was in a golden age, with the base game category seeing world records on a monthly basis, resulting in a lot of the mainstream attention around New Vegas being devoted towards the any percent run, which is where you complete the base game as fast as you can. However, some runners wanted a change of pace, and surely enough, they would get a change of pace. In an attempt to bring variety to the New Vegas speedrunning scene, a runner by the name of Kungkobra spent a good 2 weeks routing and running the various DLCs for New Vegas. He spent a lot of time routing Honest Hearts, Old World Blues, and even Lonesome Road, but he spent the most of his time on the longest DLC run of all, that being the grueling task of beating Dead Money as fast as you can. See, the gameplay of Dead Money was intentionally slow and grueling. It was very clearly a DLC designed for a level 20 plus character, so what happens if you go in at level 1? What happens if you take a beeline all the way to the Sierra Madre to defeat Dead Money as fast as you can? Well, that's exactly what Kungkobra did in his first ever Dead Money run. Quick side note here, let's talk about individual levels in the Fallout franchise and how they work. Now, an individual level, or an IL, is a speedrun of a DLC that starts from the beginning of the game, whether it's Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, or Fallout 4. All DLC ILs are ran from the start of the game, which includes navigating the base game first to get to the subsequent DLC. Now, with that out of the way, I'm going to use Kungkobra's 2016 run to explain the Dead Money speedrun route, seeing as it's the easiest to follow and is a good opportunity to go over the overarching route of the DLC itself. We start in Dr. Mitchell's office in the town of Goodsprings, like any normal new game. Immediately at the start, we pick 10 strength to get out of the special screen as fast as possible. Our special stats don't really make a difference to this run. Next is our skills with Dr. Mitchell on the couch. Kungkobra then selects the repair, survival, and melee skills, with the repair skill being the most noteworthy selection here. Finally, the last selection to make is to pick our trait. We're going to pick good-natured because it gives us 5 extra skill points to any non-combat skills, and with that being said, we're off. Immediately after this, Kung is going to perform a trick known as Speed Cripple. This isn't really important for the sake of this video, but I'll give a brief overview of what Speed Cripple is. When your legs get crippled in this game, your base movement is reduced from 100 movement speed to around about 60. During this progress, you can bug out the game by quickly reloading a save and tricking the game into giving you both normal movement speed and the previously mentioned crippled movement speed. This gives the player a movement speed of around about 160. However, this is the only run that uses this glitch, as a faster, more efficient glitch would be found not only just a month later. After getting Speed Cripple, Kungkobra then heads straight east to the abandoned Brotherhood of Steel bunker that is locked off to the player without the installment of Dead Money. And then we have the worst part of this run. The cutscene. The cutscene for the start of Dead Money is around about 1 minute and 45 seconds long, with the English voice pack. At the time of this run, the English voice pack was seen as the fastest for the DLC cutscenes, but soon enough we would discover that this would be false. After the cutscene plays and you have your initial conversation with Elijah, it's time to go recruit some companions. Immediately you head southwest to the Villa police station to find Dog. On entering, Kung turns off a few of the explosive radios and heads into the basement. Here he simply picks up the Dog command line and quick save quick loads out of bounds to reset his position back to the basement door. Returning to Dog, we have a short line of dialogue and ends off to the next companion. Once entering the medical district, Kung performs an out-of-bounds clip to head around the exterior cells and into the medical clinic itself. This skips the entire walking section through the medical district and saves a good amount of time. Once entering the medical clinic, he then grabs the basement key and heads to the basement, and shuts off the clinic's power, disabling the holo guards and turning off the explosive radios that block the corridor to Christine. From here, it's more dialogue and then on to Dean Domino. After leaving the clinic and performing another out-of-bounds clip, Kungkobra returns to the beginning fountain and then heads east once more to the residential district. Another conversation with Dean, and we have all 3 companions recruited. A small side note here is that Kung has been leveling his repair to level 60 for a later use in the run, just want to keep that in mind. Once we have all 3 recruits and we head back to the fountain, we get another conversation with Elijah about setting up the casino's opening, which requires us to use all 3 companions in one way or another. First up is Christine. After re-grabbing her as a companion, we head straight to the Salida del Sol, and then perform another out-of-bounds to get to the substation entrance. This out-of-bounds skips the entirety of the Salida del Sol area, but more importantly, will prove to be pivotal in the future history of the Dead Money any% runs. Once entering the substation, Kungkobra uses his 60 repair, which was previously mentioned, to repair the doorway into the station, gaining access to the control room, in which Christine will stay. However, due to being underleveled, Kung does take some time here to shoot out a turret in the final room to avoid taking damage. We then tell Christine to stay and move on to the next companion. Here, we grab Dean as our next companion and take him straight to Puesta del Sol South. This is where Kungkobra takes his time killing every enemy in the area to further progress with Dean safely. I don't have to tell you how slow this is for the run, and also how dangerous it is too. See, even on the easiest difficulty at any level below level 5, the damage you take from the ghost people within this DLC is substantial, and you only receive a limited amount of healing supplies. Anyhow, Kungkobra clears the local vicinity of enemies and then speaks to Dean about him staying put like Christine for the opening of the casino. That's 2 companions down, and now we have 1 more to go. Once returning to Dog, or God in this case, we head straight to Salida del Sol South, and immediately perform a stair clip out of bounds. This then gives us the freedom to run straight to the switching substation, which we can tell God to navigate for us by simply lying to him, and locking him in place. This companion is probably the most straightforward out of the 3. With all 3 companions in place, it's time to work our way into the latter half of the DLC. Now we need to navigate and start the Gala event, which opens the casino. Upon entering Salida del Sol North, Kung immediately clips out of bounds again and navigates his way to this giant conveniently placed mound under the map. One side note with this specific area of the map is that this is probably the most dangerous area in the entire DLC. There are traps everywhere, explosive radios, gas clouds, and a ton of ghost people at every turn. This is where Kungkobra needed to find an out-of-bounds skip, because running through this area normally at level 2 was pretty much deadly. Now with that being said, once Kungkobra gets to the mound itself, he performs a series of jumps that pushes him up and on top of the small hill, giving him the ability to clip back indoors around the halfway mark of this area, to which he can perform one last clip that puts him directly out of bounds underneath the ladder to the bell tower, which activates the casino's opening. With a few small jumps and the matching of the interact key, you can enter the bell tower and initiate the Gala event, skipping one of the most dangerous areas of the DLC and starting the second half of the DLC too. Immediately upon waking from the casino cutscene, Kung enters the casino floor itself and wakes up the casino. What's worth noting here is that he runs through the casino's offices to actually open up the maintenance door in order to turn on the power to the casino. Next, he heads straight to the kitchen to find that Dog has turned the entire kitchen into an explosive trap. Usually here, you'd have to navigate through another internal cell to gain access to the kitchen with Dog, but the door between you and the kitchen that's usually locked can actually be clipped through very easily. Once entering the kitchen, it's as easy as disabling the valves of the gas one by one and then returning to the opening of the room to spawn in Dog. Then, we simply kill him. With Dog dead, our next target is Dean. There's not much here to discuss with Dean Domino. This is all done pretty normally. We get to access the projector balcony and initiate the I saw her yesterday holotape. That's pretty much all we have to do, and then we kill him. There's not really much that differentiates here from the normal playthrough, but it's just worth noting that Kungkobra did navigate this area pretty cautiously. There are a few traps here that can kill you, so you had to make sure to check out for those. After finally leaving the Dean Domino area, we have one last companion to deal with, and that's just Christine. With Christine, you simply just have to clip into the maintenance room right next to the starting area of the suites and open the maintenance door. This gives you immediate access to Christine, which we, you guessed it, kill.
Signal frequency.
All that's left to do now is to thread the music sequences together and to confront Elijah. You might be thinking that I'm rushing this part of the run, but genuinely, this part of the run goes by really fast. You deal with all three companions pretty quickly, and there's not really much to discuss here. Once we finally get into the vault section, you can see straight off the bat that we are confronted with the vault in sight. However, the player is drawn down an alternate path to get to the vault, but we can clip through things and we can skip that. Kungkobra performs another clip around one of the force fields that block off the entrance to the vault, which he can then clip past again to disable the vault's security. This gives him full access to the vault, which lets him finally deal with Elijah. By selecting the right dialogue options, you can confront Elijah and propose a good old fight with him. With some well-placed holo rifle shots, Elijah is killed. Kung then clips out of bounds for one last time, resetting his position point to the beginning of the area, leaving and then exiting the DLC.
You've heard stories of the Sierra Madre Casino. We all have.
With a final time of 32 minutes, this run definitely had a lot of space to be improved, but it was a good starting point, and it was a pretty decent run considering that Kung did most of the routing himself. With the first ever run finished, and with a pretty decent time to boot, what happened next was an explosion to the New Vegas speedrunning scene. What happened next was a gold rush of dead money speedruns. Is what I would say if people took this category seriously at the time. Unfortunately, Dead Money 80% was pretty much forgotten about around 3 years ago, as a majority of the Fallout speedrun scene was devoted towards the various 80% runs of the 3D Fallout games, and some of the crazy developments that took place within the 2016 to 2018 window. As you may know from my previous speedrun documentary, this is around about the same time a major development took place within New Vegas, a speedrun glitch that broke New Vegas in half. Reload dashing was a huge deal. It was a new form of movement tech that was easy to execute and fast to perform. It drove a lot of interest in the New Vegas speedrunning scene towards the 80% and base game New Vegas runs, which was to be predicted. Unfortunately, Kung had made his March 2016 runs of the DLCs only a month prior to the discovery of Reload dashing in April 2016. The DLC's runs would just be forgotten. Kung had tried to shine a light on the new speedrun for the New Vegas community, but unfortunately, it was left alone and with no one to run it. People were simply prioritizing more important runs at the time. Dead Money, alongside the other DLCs, was abandoned until eventually the golden age of New Vegas speedruns kind of came to an end. Eventually, there was one man who sat on top of the speedrunning scene at the time, who was a fellow runner by the name of Sharo. Sharo was quickly confirmed to be one of the best around 2018 and 2019, and it was slowly obvious that he was so strictly devoted towards running Fallout that he was hard to top. Eventually though, what do you do once you have the world records that matter? What do you do when you run out of content? You start looking elsewhere. And that's exactly what Sharo did. He set his eyes upon the DLCs, and he was planning to individually sweep each run one by one. And boy, would he change these runs forever. It all starts on the 17th of September 2019, when Sharo finally pieced together a new Dead Money run, using some of the new speedrun tricks mentioned and some light rerouting. So let's jump into it. First thing to note is that Sharo immediately heads to Chet in Goodsprings upon leaving Dr. Mitchell's house. This is to get the 357 Magnum with 2 variations of the Magnum ammo. This is again to perform reload dashing that was previously mentioned, but he wasn't going for a normal reload dash. Oh no, Sharo had his eyes set on performing an infinite dash. An infinite dash is way harder to perform, but is way better at covering long distances due to the preservation of speed that the character maintains as he's reload dashing continuously while flying through the air. The previous walking section to the Dead Money DLC was reduced from 7 minutes flat in Kunkobra's world record to only 2 minutes and 48 seconds in Sharo's, giving just a small glimpse into how much the game had changed in the last 3 years. After the cutscene finishes, Sharo immediately shifts leftward and starts stop hopping. Stop hopping is a new form of movement tech in New Vegas that allows the player to chain together hops. They have a small brief window of stopping in between, hence the name. The hops themselves are performed by flicking the mouse and jumping from a standstill, which for some reason gives the player extra movement speed over walking normally. The best way to think of stop hops is basically like B-hopping from a Counter-Strike or Source game, but instead of chaining them together, you have to stop in between, but you still gain extra movement speed. Once finally making it to the police station, Sharo ignores the explosive radios and just goes straight towards the basement, where he collects the dog tape, goes out of bounds, and gets Dog as a companion. This is where we get a small glimpse into the modern Dead Money speedrun, the speedrun that basically disregards safety and opts for speed. Now straight after this, Sharo performs a reload dash with a hollow rifle, which can be done by double pressing the reload button for the single feed animation needed for the reload dash. Cancelling the animation and then unequipping the weapon shoots you forward like a normal reload dash, which subsequently knocks him over the buildings of Dead Money and straight to the entrance of the medical district. Here in the medical district, he performs another out of bounds reload dash and enters the clinic, where he still picks up the basement key and performs a time stop. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot of terminology at you that's hard to understand. If you pull out your Pip-Boy and spam right-click and then close your Pip-Boy, you can have the place marker prompt from the map in the Pip-Boy up while you have the Pip-Boy down, allowing you to navigate through difficult areas as it stops all character and object movement in the game. He then gets to the basement and disengages the power, giving him the freedom to talk to Christine. With Christine outside, Sharo returns to the fountain and proceeds to the residential district to get to Dean. Like before, at this point you kind of see where this run is going. A lot of the previously walking sections are just replaced with reload dashes, and most of the run is performed out of bounds, using exterior clipping to bypass a majority of the areas in this game. When it comes to setting up the characters in their gala position, Christine has done the same way as before, except instead of waiting for her to reach you inside of the substation, you can force her up the elevator and back into the switching station, skipping the running section inside. Next, with Dean, Sharo opts not to kill all the ghosts within the area and just kills the 3 near the standing point where Dean is left at. This is due to the fact that as long as Dean isn't in combat, he will always follow you, and with the closest ghost killed, Dean is able to do his role in opening the casino. Dog section is entirely the same, which brings us to the activation of the gala event itself, and one of the most entertaining tricks within the Dead Money speedrun. Now, previously mentioned, the Salida del Sol north area is filled with ghosts and is avoided by running to the mound in the center of the map and clipping inbounds. However, with reload dashing, Sharo was able to do one of the most entertaining tricks in the entirety of New Vegas by performing 2 reload dashes chained together, giving him the ability to do this. This completely skipped the entirety of Salida del Sol and is one of the hardest tricks to perform in the entire run, and he got it on his 2nd attempt. Now, with the activation of the casino, all that's left to do is the interior side of Dead Money. Now, most of the interior of Dead Money is done pretty much the same. We still kill Dog, Dean, and Christine. Due to the interior cells being so small and closed off, reload dashing doesn't really save a lot of time here, with the biggest time save here coming from Sharo being much cleaner and better with his execution of the game overall. The final time for this run was a 19 minute and 41 second world record, beating the previously mentioned time by Kungkobra by over 10 minutes. Most of this time save was obviously due to reload dashing, but Sharo also took riskier routes by ignoring caller radios and ghost people, and just navigating the DLC overall in a much cleaner fashion. This time stood for over a year, despite other runners starting to become more active in this category again. The 3 main runners at the time were Sharo, Kungkobra, and Besk. A lot of these runners had a laid-back approach to the DLC runs, until eventually Besk discovered that the opening cinematic for the Dead Money DLC was around 10 seconds shorter in Spanish. That's right, The opening cutscene that you're forced to watch, for some reason, was a whole 10 seconds ahead of both Italian and English, which are the normal languages that are used to speedrun Fallout New Vegas. Alongside this, a few other tricks and glitches were also found amongst the entirety of Dead Money that shaved off a ton of time across the board. Like for example, in the medical clinic with Christine, instead of disabling the power and then returning to grab her as a companion, you can simply reload dash down the hallway and perform a third-person interaction glitch with Christine inside of the auto dock. This allows you to quickly discuss your findings with her and then clip out of bounds before dying to the radio collars, saving a lot of time over the previously mentioned strats. Another crazy strat to mention was with the use of time stop. See, time stop pauses all physical objects and characters within the game, and by entering the residential district where Dean is located, you can pull an object out and keep it hovering in the air by holding it before initiating a time stop. This then freezes it in the air, allowing you to jump off of it onto a roof, which puts you in the perfect position to reload dash straight to Dean Domino. Although this strat itself barely saves a lot of time, it's a very flashy strat that is still amazing to watch to this day. There's just two more strats to mention here that were also found in 2020. First of all, you can enter the switching station from the exit elevator by simply clipping out of bounds and looking up to find the door resting above you. The fun fact about this trick is that speedrunners were actually running past this door the entire time while walking around to the main entrance. Not knowing the side entrance was in plain view the entire time, this saves around 30 seconds and was literally in front of our eyes for years. The last major trick to be found in 2020 was simply probably the most interesting. That's the strat of finishing the DLC without even confronting Elijah. See, the previously mentioned time stop is really useful in, well, stopping time, and you can avoid Elijah altogether by simply initiating the ending fight with him, time stopping, and then running past him, leaving him in the vault forever without touching him and leaving him to his own demise. This saved a lot of time for two reasons. One, you were avoiding the fight with Elijah altogether, and two, you were also avoiding his ending speech before said fight.
No, I don't think so. I'll have the Sierra Madre killed.
This was a huge find alongside all of the other tricks discovered. Overall, these time saves proved to be pivotal towards Dead Money 80%, saving upwards of 90 seconds total. Which is why inevitably, the world record was beaten by Besk himself on the 28th of September 2020. With a 19-minute and 9-second record. The run itself was pretty good, a lot of the execution was well done, but there was clearly more time to save, and eventually the run got beaten again.
We just need to not choke.
By a runner known as LMW, who took the new strats found in 2020 and achieved an 18-minute and 41-second run on the 10th of February 2021.
Oh my goodness. Oh. I stopped timer a bit late, but Jesus Christ.
This run overall had much better execution and was clearly a much cleaner run from LMW. He took great advantage of time stopping during this run and was clearly a contender for the world record. That's why his 1841 stood for a total of 3 days. It stood for 3 days. Besk fired back with an 1830 3 days later on the 13th of February, followed by an 1822 the day after.
Seguro que has oído historias sobre el Casino Sierra.
Besk had clearly seen that LMW was stepping up to the plate, and subsequently decided to run the category back to reclaim his world record. The final 1822 run was really good. It was a really well executed run that achieved a majority of its clips and tricks first try, and with that, the competition was bested. Or you could say, besked. Anyhow, that's where the current world record stands today, with Besk on top with an 18-minute and 22 world record. Now, I do think this run can be beaten by either LMW Sharo or Kungkobra, or even Besk himself. There is still some room for some time save, and overall you can always push the world record further. It's just a matter of whether or not it's worthwhile. If you couldn't tell by now, the IL DLC runs for New Vegas don't really get a lot of love, despite having a rich history of reroutes and interesting tricks. A lot of runners will just avoid the DLCs as they don't see it as worthwhile. I personally believe this is an oversight by the community. The New Vegas DLCs have some really fun runs with some cool tricks, and I believe that Dead Money is probably the most interesting. You never know, I might be back in 2 years' time, giving you an update about a new runner who's came to the scene and beats the current world record. Anyhow, that's the brief history on the world record history of Dead Money, in my opinion one of the most polarizing DLCs. It's a shorter topic than normal, but I believe that every speedrun tale is one that's worth listening to. I really hope you enjoyed this video.